And it really goes to prove that if you don't measure something, nothing will be done about it.
And we have to make New Jersey's business climate more attractive for entrepreneurs.
We are Wonder Women. Like, look at all these women and what they've done and what they've tried. And even if they didn't succeed, they gave it a shot.
I don't think it's fair to put a $4 or $5 billion price tag on middle-class New Jerseyans.
We've got a great lifestyle here, and I don't want to see it ruined because politicians can't manage our finances properly.
Welcome, I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. Thank you for joining me. Today's show is part of the series that focuses on women leaders in politics and policy. As more women are running for office and becoming more involved in civil service, I wanted to seek out and highlight those women leaders who are making their mark in various positions all across levels of government. That ranges from academia, city and county government, as well as nonprofits. Today, I'm thrilled to interview Jean Sinzdak, who is the Associate Director of the City for American Women and Politics, also known as COP, who has firsthand experience helping women get trained and get elected. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, you know what? I have been waiting to meet you in person for a long time.
Oh, wow.
I've gone to a few workshops at COP, or the Center of American
Women in politics.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I am so happy that there is an institution that is helping women leaders, and I can only imagine how it's grown, especially with the sentiment the last couple years. And I really want to highlight you because as a woman who has been part of women's leadership, civic engagement, and really making sure that other women can make their mark in the industry, I wanted you to share with our viewers, like, how did you get to where you are today, and what was your journey?
Well, I've always been interested in women's issues and elevating women's status, and it goes back to my days, probably as a kid. I don't want to tell my whole life story, but I'm a twin. I have a twin brother, and so I was very conscious of gender in a different way maybe than some other kids were growing up, and sort of expectations for boys versus girls. And so that probably seeped into my consciousness a bit. And you know, when I went to college, I took a few classes in our women's studies department. I was an English major and a history minor, but just very interested in human behavior and society, and in women's status and their roles in our society. So that sort of, that catapulted me kind of on this path of wanting to do women's leadership or again, elevating women's status in my career. So I've been very lucky. I worked for a long time in Washington, D.C. at the Institute for Women's Policy Research. And a big project I worked on there was the status of women in the states. And it was basically all about, how women are doing in economics, in politics, in health, and socioeconomic status. It's all the sort of report card around the country of how women are doing. And it was a terrific project to work on because it's sort of this dark reality of what women face based on where they live and their background and the opportunities they have or they don't have access to. So that, all of that sort of continued me on this path. And then I eventually, about almost 15 years ago, which is hard to believe, I came to the Center for American Women in Politics, which is actually based at the Eagleton Institute of Politics at Rutgers University. And, I knew about the center from my work at IWPR in DC. And when I was looking for an opportunity to move north, there were only so many places that I wanted to work, and this was one of them. So, and our focus obviously is on advancing women's political leadership and women's influence in public life in all kinds of ways. So it's been a terrific so that's my career path, but it's been a terrific place to be and grow and see women advance. And it's been quite a ride. I mean, we could talk more about this, but just where women have been and how far they've come in the political world.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm sure you guys do a lot of different initiatives. You do the Ready to Run. I'd love to hear more about that and how it's changed over the last 15 years, because I feel like, in the past it's probably been peaks and valleys, but right now it's like an uphill, so many women are getting involved. So
that's right, yeah. So the center itself is about 50 years old, almost 50 years old. We're coming up on our 50th anniversary. And Ready to Run is our nonpartisan campaign training for women. And it's actually, that program is almost 20 years old. It's an annual program, And it was started before my time at the center, but the idea was they were studying women in politics, and the research showed that women are far less likely to get asked to run for office by political figures like other elected leaders, party officials, sort of influencers in the political world. So, the idea was we need to do an intervention and we need to give women a roadmap. And they also talked about it. A lot of women at the time were saying, we don't have a roadmap. No one's asking us to run for office, and we're not in these circles that are making it easy for us. Like, we don't know the fundraising, how to do the fundraising, or how to do, talking to the media and all of that. So
they're not on the golf course.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're in the boardrooms, things like that. So so it was really very much Ready to Run was started here by COP in New Jersey as a way of doing two things. One, to put a spotlight on the issue of how few women were serving at the time, and two, to just provide their very practical roadmap. And you get all the nuts and bolts of how to run for office. And so it's been an annual program ever since. And so to your question about where it's been, and it's been it's steadily increased. We've seen a steady number of women running for office, sort of the proportions of women running and winning office increased throughout the years. In the last couple of years, it's been sort of an explosion. I mean, we've had record number, not just at our program, but in partner programs. We help partners around the country run their own Ready to Run campaign trainings. And in the last couple of years, we've had an explosion in terms of the numbers of women who are attending these programs. And we've seen it bear out in the numbers. We track how many women are running for and serving in office in the entire U.S. And in 2018, we had a record number of women running in congressional, statewide, and state legislative offices, and then a record number of women winning. Wow. And it's not just that they sort of went past records a little bit. They blew past records. All previous records were basically, obliterated.
Right.
So it's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about the numbers, because you and I talked about this off camera, and I just thought it was astonishing to me. So when you guys ran the numbers for the 116th Congress, 127 women won, right?
Right.
And of that, 106 Democrats within the House and 21 Republican women won.
Well, so, I mean, we had some incumbents in there that were holdovers. But yes, right now we have 127 women serving in the Congress, the highest it's ever been. But 21 of them are Republicans and 106 are Democrats.
So I can't ignore that fact. That is almost 5 to 1.
Right. Oh, yes.
Right? So why do you believe, just from your perspective and being around this on a daily basis, why do you think there are so few women, Republicans, getting in the game?
Well, I mean, it's a longer and more complicated conversation, right? But, I mean, part of it is certainly in the 2018 elections, the midterm elections, the Democratic Party was the underdog, which is not unusual for them to be the more motivated party, for the party that's not in power to be more motivated. So that wasn't exactly a surprise. But it's certainly been a trend for a long time that Democratic women have been a greater share of their party's caucus than Republican women have been. And we've been paying attention to that because obviously we're nonpartisan. We want women on both sides of the aisle. It's important to have those voices there. And I think part of it is the party platform. Republicans, as a platform, as a party, have not really subscribed to identity politics. So it's more about where are you going to vote on the issues. It doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from. We just want the people that are going to vote, X, Y, and Z on the issues that are a part of our platform. Whereas, at least certainly recently, Democrats have paid a lot more attention to the identity piece of it. So who you are, your background, your racial and ethnic identity, your gender, all of that is important, and they want to,
include that.
They want to include that in terms of you bring those perspectives to the table, and so sort of recognizing that those are valuable. So we need a very diverse pool of people. And so that's, it's a challenge, but we work really hard with groups on both sides of the aisle, and particularly Republican groups, because I know a lot of Republican women in political circles that are very concerned about how few Republican women are running. And so we really want to turn that around because we want those voices at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. When you do the Ready to Run, how big is the class?
Well, so normally, in any given year, before the last couple of years, we would have maybe, depending on the election, ours is a statewide program. We would have maybe 150 to 200 women, depending on what was happening that year. If it was a big election year or a quieter year. In the last couple of years, we've had well over 200. I think in 2017 we had close to 300. and we had to stop it because we didn't have room and we didn't have time to move it. So, and then, it's been a little bit less. That was sort of the biggest year, and then, but well over 200. So it's been, we definitely seen the interest is sustaining itself. Absolutely. And where it goes from here.
And who is coming in? Is it a variety of ages and demographics? Are you finding, let me just say that I feel like with politics, when you're in your 40s, there's women who with the kids, it's hard for them to get involved. So do you find that women are saying, you know what, I just want to get involved at this point?
So yes, I think that's been one of the things that we've seen change over the last few years. And historically, traditionally, women wait till they're older, after their kids are grown, after some of those responsibilities, the childcare responsibilities are lessened, or they're also at a certain point. If you're in your 40s, you might be at a certain point in your career where it's not easy to take on yet another thing, right?
Right.
So they tend to wait till they're a little bit older. But what we've seen over the last couple of years is women starting a lot younger and doing exactly as you said, which is, I'm not going to wait. There's never going to be a good time, so I'm going to do it now.
Right. What advice would you give to women who are at any age, maybe the 20s, 30s, and then the 40s? What advice would you give to women if they want to get started, but they're a little bit hesitant or they don't want to run for office?
Right.
Because not everybody can run.
Right, absolutely. So as part of our Ready to Run program, we have track 1, which is I'm ready to run now, now what? So, and the track 2 is I'm not ready to run yet, but. And so we talk about getting involved in party leadership, because we need women in those positions helping make the decisions about who the party is going to support, or help recruiting potential candidates, because that's so important. Recruitment is so important. But also how to advocate for the issues that you care about on the legislative level. If you're not sure, if you've never been to a public hearing and you want to, on a piece of legislation, you want to know how to do that, how do you go and put your voices into that conversation? How to seek appointed seats, because there are thousands of appointed seats at the state and county and local levels, and we need women at those tables as well making decisions, and some of them have immense policy making power. So that's a great place if you're not ready to run for office, but you can figure out how can I get appointed to this particular board on this issue that I care about. So we talk about all of those things. The biggest thing we tell people though is just do it. I mean, get started. If you're thinking about it, go to some meetings, figure out what you want to do, and go to some public meetings and ask some questions and meet different people and, volunteer on a campaign and do all those things. But don't wait for the perfect time, because there's never a perfect time.
Never.
So just get started.
Yeah. What would you say that you overcame as a leader yourself? There's always different lessons that we learn. What have you learned through the process of your life and being part of politics and so forth?
That's a good question. Well, I think, and I really learned this lesson in the last couple of years, which is, it's okay to disrupt the status quo. It's also to sort of shed expectations of, we're all part of this. And and I think about it in political terms. I'm not running for office, but for a lot of women and newcomers to the political process, they look around and say, I don't fit the mold. I'm not seeing anyone that looks like me in Congress right now or in my state legislature. And so that's the thing that kind of is like, voters aren't expecting someone like me. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is people saying, well, that's okay. I'm me, and that's important, and I'm going to be my authentic self, and I'm not going to try to fit the expectations. So of what an elected official looks like, I'm important in and of myself. You know what I mean?
And I have a voice.
And I have a voice, and my voice is valuable, and my perspective is valuable. So I think for me, I've really taken that lesson to heart. I think it's such a good lesson about just being true to yourself and doing the things you want to do because they're important to you, as opposed to waiting for someone to give you permission to do them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you see us heading in terms of politics? I mean, I feel like it's so partisan. Can I read you a quote?
Sure,
actually?
please do.
This is from Eleanor Roosevelt. A mature person is one who does not think only in absolutes, but who is able to be objective even when deeply stirred emotionally, who has learned that there is both good and bad in all people and in all things, and who walks humbly and deals charitably with circumstances of life, knowing that in this world, no one is all-knowing, and therefore all of us need to both be lovable, loving and charitable. And I find that with politics, it is so partisan.
Yes.
And I feel like we are dealing with absolutes. So what trend do you see for the future in politics?
Well, I mean, there's my hopeful and optimistic trend. I do think that people are paying attention to this now, this hyper-partisanship. Things have been progressively more and more partisan. For those of us who are in the political world, we've seen it in a way, that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you did not. There's always been, power and partisanship, but it's just,
this is different.
It's much more hyper, and things like social media and cable news have contributed to that hyper, it's all or nothing. It's one side or the other. But what I think is my hopeful and optimistic feeling is that now that people are seeing that and understanding that that's a phenomenon, more and more people will push back against it and say we need to have real conversations one-on-one with our neighbors and not just get into a fight over, a social media platform about what's happening. Let's have a conversation over the fence, or, have tea with each other. And I know there are a lot of groups that are working on that. Yeah. So I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that might help. Just that the spotlight on the issue will help turn the tide in that regard. On a different day, I might have a different answer to that question, but I feel that way. I feel at least people are acknowledging it in recognition of that unfortunate sort of cultural phenomenon that's happening now. So
I like to end on a positive, and the optimism, because I think that we're getting smart. To your point, we're getting smart to social media.
Exactly.
And there's accountability in that. And so, do we want to lose all our friends and family simply for opinions or the back and forth on social media? So
that's right.
I'm with you on that. I'm optimistic.
Good. So we'll both be optimistic.
All right. And we have to leave it there. Can you believe it's over?
That's a shame. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your leadership. It has been enormously helpful for Jersey. I feel like we want more women to run and to find the leadership roles that work for them.
Oh, well,
so thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and I'll have you back in the summer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be looking forward to it.
Okay, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. For more fantastic programming like this, please visit HTTV's website, Facebook page, Instagram, or YouTube channel. Have a great day.